Hello guys, let's discuss about oral musculature and its importance in prosthodontics. Here are the contents: introduction, classification, extraoral muscles, intraoral muscles, subcategorized into muscles of mastication, suprahyoid and infrahyoid muscles, muscles of tongue, and muscles of soft palate. And lastly, influence of muscles on maxillary and mandibular dentures. So most of the orofacial muscles are striated skeletal muscles which are comprises of both type 1 slow fibers and type 2 fast fibers. Coming on to the oral and facial musculature, they are categorized into extraoral muscles and intraoral muscles. Extraoral muscles are listed as below, whereas intraoral muscles are again subcategorized into muscles of mastication, muscles of soft palate, and muscles of tongue. This is the figure depicting various types of extraoral muscles. Further, this is also the figure depicting the extraoral muscles, in which we can very well appreciate the origin of each and every type of the extraoral muscles. Coming on to the details, we have very first muscle, which is orbicularis oris, also called as composite muscle because it consists of both extrinsic as well as intrinsic muscles. Its actions are: it helps in the closure of the lips, protrusion of the lips, and pursing of the lips. Prosthodontically, it is important because as orbicularis oris, it provides support to the upper and lower lips. So ultimately, it decides how much thick the flange of the denture should be. If the flange of the denture is more thicker, it would lead to more stretching of the orbicularis oris muscle. So it should be taken care of. Next is depressor anguli oris. It depresses the corner of the mouth in downward direction as in expression of sadness. Prosthodontically, it is important because it overlies the buccal frenum of the mandible. Hence, it has to be recorded properly during the primary impression as well as the border molding. Next is levator anguli oris. It helps in the elevation of the angle of the mouth as in smiling, and prosthodontically it is important because it is present beneath the maxillary buccal frenum along with the orbicularis oris and buccinator. So its activity should be recorded properly and frenum should be relieved at the time of denture delivery. Hence it should be recorded during primary impression as well as during the border molding properly. Next is zygomaticus major, zygomaticus minor, then levator labii superioris, which helps in the elevation of the upper lip. Prosthodontically, it is important because it blends with the orbicularis oris of the upper lip. Next is depressor labii inferioris. It depresses the lower lip and it overlies the depressor anguli oris, which itself overlies the buccal frenum of the mandible. Next we have levator labii superioris alachnesi, followed by risorius, then mentalis. The action of mentalis is elevation and protrusion of the lower lip. Prosthodontically, activity of the mentalis is important because contraction of the mentalis, it directly shallows the lower sulcus. So it's very much important to judge the activity of the mentalis muscle, which directly influences the thickness of the flange of the lower denture. Buccinator, it keeps the cheeks taut, and during mastication it contracts and places the food particles on the occlusal table. Prosthodontically, it is important because in the lower jaw, muscle becomes major part of the denture bearing area of the first molar area back till the retromolar pad. Modulus, it is a fibromuscular mass formed by the convergence of various muscles towards a focus just lateral to the buccal angle. Importance of modulus is: modulus presses the corner of the mouth against the premolar so that the occlusal table is closed in front. Hence, it provides the food from the escapement from the corner of the mouth. Next, we switch on to the intraoral muscles. Firstly, we have muscles of mastication, masseter, which helps in the elevation and protrusion of the mandible. Next is temporalis, which helps in the elevation of the mandible, and it is the only muscle which leads to the retrusion of the mandible. Next is medial pterygoid, which helps in the elevation of mandible, protrusion of mandible, and side to side movements. Next we have lateral pterygoid muscle, which helps in the protrusion of mandible, depression of mandible, and lateral excursion of mandible from side to side movement. Hence lateral pterygoid is the only muscle which helps to depress the mandible. Next we have suprahyoid and infrahyoid muscles. Among suprahyoid muscles we have stylohyoid, mylohyoid, digastric and geniohyoid muscles. The only action of the suprahyoid muscle is elevation of the hyoid bone. Next we have infrahyoid muscles, which has omohyoid, sternohyoid, sternothyroid and thyrohyoid. The action of the infrahyoid muscles mostly is the depression of the hyoid bone. This is the figure showing suprahyoid and infrahyoid muscles. We have hyoid bone, above which we have suprahyoid muscles, and below which we have infrahyoid muscles. Next we have muscles of tongue. Muscles of tongue are of two types, mainly extrinsic muscles and intrinsic muscles. So extrinsic muscles, they move the tongue as an anatomic structure, whereas intrinsic muscles, they change the tongue's shape. So in extrinsic muscles we have genioglossus, hyoglossus, styloglossus and palatoglossus, whereas in intrinsic muscles we have superior longitudinal muscle, inferior longitudinal muscle, transverse and vertical muscle. So moving on to extrinsic muscles, we have genioglossus, which helps in the protrusion of tongue, then unilateral deviation of the tongue, and bilaterally it helps to make the dorsum of the tongue concave. Next we have hyoglossus, which helps in the depression of the tongue. Then styloglossus, which is the smallest of all extrinsic muscles, helps in the retrusion of the tongue and elevation of the tongue. And palatoglossus, it helps in the elevation of the root of the tongue and narrows the oropharyngeal isthmus for deglutition. This is the figure showing various types of the extrinsic muscles of the tongue, such as palatoglossus, styloglossus, hyoglossus and genioglossus. Next we have intrinsic muscles of the tongue, which has superior longitudinal, which helps in making the dorsal surface of the tongue concave, whereas inferior longitudinal muscle makes the dorsal surface of the tongue convex. Next is transverse muscle, which narrows and lengthens the tongue, and vertical muscle, which broadens and flattens the tongue. This is the figure showing the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Next we have muscles of soft palate, among which we have tensor valli palatini, which pulls the soft palate laterally and broadens it. Then levator valli palatini and palatopharyngeus. These both the muscles, they help to close the nasopharynx. And lastly musculus uvulae, which retracts and pulls the uvula. And lastly the influence of muscles on the maxillary denture, such as labial frenum, which has orbicularis oris muscle for the lip. As the maxillary labial frenum does not carry any type of muscle attachment, but there is orbicularis oris muscle present in the lip. So we need to record the activity and mold the lip accordingly during primary impression as well as during border molding. Next we have buccal frenum. It also carries muscle attachments such as levator anguli oris, buccinator muscle and orbicularis oris. Hence we need to record the frenal activity at the time of primary impression as well as during border molding. Nextly we have posterior palatal seal area, which is mostly determined by the muscles of the soft palate. As we all know that soft palate has the thick tendinous palatine aponeurosis, and depending on the contour and compressibility of this aponeurosis, the palatal seal quality is determined. So in this case the muscles of soft palate is important. Next is pharyngeal muscle, among which superior constrictor muscle plays an important role in denture cases, because if pressure against the because superior constrictor muscle, it exerts pressure against the distal extremity of the mandibular denture, hence overextension in this area might be painful. Next is modiolus. As we have discussed earlier, it has to be recorded properly during the border molding by holding it between the thumb and the index finger and mold the area accordingly. Next is the height of the distobuccal flange of the maxillary denture, which is determined by the buccinator muscle. Because the buccal surface of maxillary denture, it inclines inward from the border and it is in direct contact with the lateral forces from the contracting buccinator muscles. Next is effect on the mandibular dentures. So mandibular labial frenum has an attachment of mentalis muscle, so it has to be recorded properly because it directly affects the thickness of the labial flange of the mandibular denture. Next, labial vestibule has an orbicularis attachment which influence the flange thickness along with the buccinator fibers. Next is buccal frenum, which overlies the depressor anguli oris, followed by buccal shelf area, which should be adequately covered because buccinator's attachment is parallel to the flange in this area also. Then masseteric notch, which is formed because of the action of masseter on buccinator. Then retromolar area, denture extension should be controlled due to pterygomandibular raphe attachment in the retromolar area. If the denture border is slightly overextended, it may harm and cause painful lesions over the pterygomandibular raphe. Next is lingual sulcus, which is determined by the activity of the mylohyoid muscles which form the floor of the oral cavity. Hence, it should be molded and recorded properly with the help of the tongue movements. Now lastly, these are some of the movements which are to be done to record the anatomical landmarks of the oral cavity. So with respect to maxilla, firstly we have labial frenum and labial vestibule. So we ask patient for the aggressive movement of the lips like puckering, sneer and smiling, and the prominence of frenum should be duplicated. Next we have posterior lateral areas for which we need to ask the patient to do side to side movement. For hamular notch, we need to push the compound into the notch and patient is asked to open wide and close against the hand on the chin. Next we have buccal frenum and vestibule. For this we need to pull the cheek upward, downward and inward. So by these movements we can record the muscle activity and we can decide the extent of the denture flanges by giving these movements. Next we have mandibular landmark, among which we have labial frenum and labial vestibule. For this we again need to ask the patient for aggressive movement of the lips. Next, for buccal shelf area, patient is asked to open wide. For masseteric notch and retromolar pad, we need to ask the patient to open the mouth wide and ask the patient to close the mouth against the pressure. Retromylohyoid area, we need to push the compound into the fossa and ask patient to lick the lower lip, cheek and ask the patient to swallow. For anterior lingual border, we need to ask the patient to lick the upper lip and the tongue movement through the maxillary labial vestibule. For lingual sulcus, ask patient to lick the upper and lower lip and right and left cheek and ask patient to push the tongue against the handle of the custom tray or the clinician's thumb. So basically we should ask these movements from the patient, which we usually do at the time of border molding, and as this molds the muscle and records the muscle activity, this procedure is also called as muscle trimming. Hope you got the things well. Thank you.